So we're going to do another one of these, mainly because I decided I'd like to do this one. The adventure files will just have to wait for another day. I could not put off talking about this any longer. The Day of the Living Dead was one of those movies from the dollar store that I picked up. Part 3 of the Dollar Bin Movies series that I'm doing on this channel. Again, these are not research-based. I don't research who took part in it. I don't research how it was made, why it was made, where it was made, or anything like that. I just talk about this from a person who watches the video and just talks about what they've seen. And that's about it. It's like an audience discussion, as I've said before. From the cover, you'd think this might look pretty cool. And you'd be right. From the cover, it does look pretty cool. You got some sort of spoopy little person with a gun here. You got some zombies and all that stuff. You think, okay, there's the living dead. The bloodbath has begun. Well, again, like Blue Call and others, the cover is a little bit misleading. The slogan for this movie, in fact, I think the new title for this film should be called Smoking Kills You Undead. I know that's dumb, but the premise, at least is a little bit original. I have never heard of a zombie film where smoking turns you into zombies, but apparently smoking turns you into zombies in this film. We start our film in a type of noir type of setup, and I think this is a little bit unique in that regards because the film is both in color and black and white. You have various points in the film where it switches to color, but most of it is in black and white. And it's got that noir look to it. You've got this insurance investigator dudo. He's not on the cover, clearly. On the back here, let's see if we can find him. Yeah, I believe it's this guy right here. That guy. He's the insurance investigator dude who's investigating some issues. George Lazarus is his name. He is sent to investigate a $13 million claim that will bankrupt his company, a cigarette company, if you will. He's got to investigate the disappearances of some of the employees. And, well, the employees aren't really disappearing so much as dying and then not dying, not staying dead. As you can see, there's some people right here. Well, George Lazarus interviews some employees to this company, and they're all smokers. Every single one of them, they're smoking, they can't stop, and they're coughing, and they're choking on the smoking. You might think this film is trying to tell you something about smoking. So this company puts something in the cigarettes, I guess, and whoever starts choking up on these things will die and become a zombie. That's the long and short of it, and the virus is contagious in regards to if you get bitten and killed, you'll turn into a zombie as well. Because George Lazarus becomes one near the end of the film. The irony, I'm just going to read the back of this for you. I don't want to read it from upside down, so I'm going to flip it over. An insurance adjuster, George Lazarus, is sent to investigate a $13 million claim that will bankrupt his company. When he disappears, his fiancée Bethany does an investigation of her own and discovers that all of the employees of the Deadly Sin cigarette company whom he was looking into had all disappeared mysteriously before George arrived. It seems that this simple case of insurance fraud turned deadly has caused a zombie apocalypse that could end the human race. Will Bethany get out before it is too late? Now, the back of the case there suggests that Bethany is the main character. Yeah, no, she's not. Most of the film, the very bulk of the film, unless I don't have a full version of this film, which could be the case, this is a dollar store movie after all, but Bethany's not part of this film in a large sense. She's seen in some scenes, and she is in the very last scene of the film, but she doesn't do much. The back of this case here suggests that George Lazarus disappears pretty early, and his fiancée Bethany is part of the main story. You think, oh, is this Bethany? Is she the badass with the gun? No, no. Forget everything you see here. Forget this. This isn't some George Romero awesome tribute. No, this is pretty much a film noir of George Lazarus interviewing and investigating this insurance fraud scam or whatever, and he's talking to all the people and he's getting information. He's going from employee to employee. Everybody's smoking and everybody's turning into zombies after George leaves, and that's about it. George investigates this last area where he's talking to one of these employees who says to meet him later at some other place. Well, some other place in an hour, this employee turns into a zombie because he's smoking on those cigarettes, and he doesn't show up to the meeting place. George looks around, and then he sees one of the women who is a zombie, who is at this little warehouse that the employee of the cigarette company told him to meet him at, and he gets bitten, eaten, killed, and then he turns into a zombie. And then the film ends with Bethany on the phone talking about something or whatever. And then the film ends. There is no Bethany doing any investigating of her own. There is no Bethany doing anything of her own. Now, maybe I don't have the right grasp on this film. Maybe the black and whites, which is primarily what George Lazarus was in, maybe that's all flashbacks. I've only seen this film once, and it was very, 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 very hard to pay attention to it. Normally, I can pay attention to a film just fine. If I put in a movie such as, say, Black Hawk Down, I could pay attention to it just fine. I would have no problems with it whatsoever. I could pick up the story, I can listen to what everybody's saying, and I can follow along with the plot. When I watched The Day of the Living Dead, it was difficult to pay attention to this story. I don't even know if it knew what it was trying to do. If the people were just talking about things. It was leading nowhere half the time. They were talking about some insurance fraud. They're talking about insurance claims and business stuff, and mostly just business with some zombies sprinkled in on the side. And the business part of the insurance stuff was not interesting to me. The film failed to give me any form of interest into its plot. All I took away from it was smoking kills and turns you into zombies. So if you don't want to be a zombie, don't smoke those cigarettes. This one was a failure. It was a failure in my eyes. This might be worse than Blue Call. You might enjoy it for a bad, good movie if you, for example, popped it into your player and you had some friends over and you're drinking or doing something else, and you could just point and laugh at what's going on. And you'd go, if you were able to pay attention to it better than I was, then you might know a little bit more about what's going on than I did. But I failed to grasp what was going on in this film. George Lazarus was investigating in a film noir zombie movie, and then he dies and turns into a zombie, and then the film ends with Bethany on the phone, and then she does nothing afterwards. Is it? The back of the cover was incredibly misleading. The front of the cover was incredibly misleading. And usually, a lot of the times, that's what they kind of do. These low-budget films, they would make an epic-looking cover to get you reeled in, to reel you in and make you think, ooh, this looks interesting. Then you look it on your streaming website, and you see this little picture here on your list of films to watch, and you say, ooh, this looks interesting, let's watch it. But then you scroll away after the first 5 minutes when you realize how bad it is, but hey, it already got you to click on it. So it won right there. That's what this cover does to me. It makes me think, oh, it's one of those types of covers where you're at the store and you look at it and you think, oh, this looks interesting, and you buy it. It's at the dollar store, though, so it's only $1. You can't beat $1, but in this case, this dollar beat me. This wasn't a film I could follow. If I watched it again and forced myself to pay attention, I might pick up some more things that I didn't pick up the first time around, but I don't want to watch it again. At least Blue Call had some funny rogue nurse killer nurse thing, paramedic thing that was pretty funny to watch. This, I couldn't follow it. It's just George Lazarus interviewing some smokers, and then the smokers turn zombies afterwards. Well, okay, there's one good thing that I could say is that the makeup was pretty good. Like, it couldn't afford a lot of CGI or anything like that. There was probably no CGI at all in this. So all of the effects are practical. There's some good makeup here. So, I mean, it wasn't stellar makeup, but hey, it was decent enough makeup for what they had, and they probably didn't have too much. I did like that they swapped into black and white, give it a little film noir type of feel when George is going about interviewing things, but I feel like you could have had a better score with that. Sorry about that, we had to pause for a few seconds, a few moments there, actually. I actually like this new program on this new PC. I can actually pause recording now. I didn't used to be able to do that on my old one. Just goes to show how far in the Stone Ages I was on this PC of mine. But now we've got the new one, and I can pause without stopping the recording. That's amazing. But I was almost about done anyways. There's not too much else to say about this. This is one of the films the dollar beat me instead of me beating the dollar. But what can I say? Followed was worth at least $5. So I could get a few of these beating me anyways, because Followed was still a very good experience from the dollar store. And this isn't bad enough to make me regret that. So that was Day of the Living Dead. The film noir investigative zombie flick. You're not gonna get too much zombies. They're barely in it at all. The opening scene was kind of funny, though. It was. You wonder who wrote the script. Was this a zombie comedy? It might have been a comedy. If it was intended to be a comedy, then maybe I'll give it a little bit of a pass. But I might have to watch this again if it was intended to be a comedy. There were a few moments in there where it was ludicrous enough, absurd enough to make you chuckle at. And the opening scene was one of those. But for the most part, there really wasn't too much in the way of zombies. They weren't really the antagonist. The antagonist was like the cigarette company, and that plot line never really resolves itself. The film doesn't really resolve itself at the end. It just ends. And you're like, wait, is there more to this movie? Was there more? But no, it just ends. It just ends. And that's exactly like this recording. It's just going to end. But remember, be imaginative.